Hello and welcome to tutorial 5. In this tutorial we will cover advanced configuration options for the game, as well as covering three-dimensional scene with a three-dimensional zone and movement through three-dimensional directions. I'll first show you the new features of the engine by creating a new tutorial. The first thing that you'll notice is that we don't need to copy across a configuration file. If we run the engine and we attempt to run it, we'll get a whole bunch of errors, but if we refresh this, you see it automatically creates a configuration file. There are a couple of more options that you can use in your configuration file now. First one is the name. This is the name of the game. You can use spaces in this one, and you can also set the author. There's also an icon configuration. For a demonstration of how the icon works, you can have a look at the RTS, and you just link it to an image inside the game directory at resources nebula 1. Resources nebula 1. So we'll go back to our tutorial. The first thing, like normal, is to set the escape key to exit. And because we're making a three-dimensional application, we want to set the game mode to 3D. After this, because we want to be able to move in our environment, we need to set the player speed to a reasonable amount. With floats and everything in the engine, a value of 1 or 2 is a very, very big value. It's the entire screen across. So you need to remember that and make sure to set your values as very small. We're first going to set up the camera orientation. We're going to set the rotation to 130 degrees. This is because when we get into our scene, the scene will be behind us, so we want to rotate around, and we also want to be a bit above the scene. Now, in like all cases, to move upwards, you need to set a negative value. And that's all for the camera. Now to make a zone inside a game, that's a map, a field, we can use the zone class. You first have to note that there are two zone classes. The first one is in model, and that one's deprecated. You shouldn't use that one. Instead, use the generator zone. And inside the zone, it's expecting a sequence of an array. It wants an array. To feed it an array, you have to give it an array generator. We're going to use a random array generator, so the zone is going to look a bit bumpy. And the first parameter of the random array generator is the minimum value. We're going to set it as 0. The next value is the maximum value. We're going to set it as 1. So it will generate numbers between 0 and 1. So 0.5, 0.278. We also want the zone to be 200 across and 200 deep. We'll import random array generator. And we'll use the generate method to generate a next zone at a reasonable scale. We'll finally make the zone and place it in the scene. For some reason, it won't accept values for the first two parameters if they're not floats. So we're quickly going to make them floats and run the engine. and we'll see that a zone is generated. We can also move the mouse to move around in our zone, but we can't actually move the player. To quickly move the player, we're going to override the heartbeat, and we're going to do key bindings in a very simple and easy way. Before we did key bindings by setting the state, but we don't have to use that. In fact, we can use a much simpler approach. You can use the key is down, the W key. And if the W key is down, we'll move the camera forward. If key is down, A, move camera left. If key is down, S, move camera down, backward. And the D key is to move the camera right. We'll save that and run the engine, load our tutorial, and we can move around in a world. Moving forward, moving right, moving left, and moving backward. Finally, if we want to move up and down, we can use the Shift key to move downwards, or we could use any key, obviously, and we can use the Space key to move the camera up. We'll run the engine, and we can now use Space to rise, and we can use Shift to fall. If we want to change how fast or slowly we move, we can adjust the player speed parameter. We can make it 5 times faster by setting it to 0.5 f. And you can see that we move a lot faster. That is the end of tutorial 5. Feel free to post any comments or questions.